The NPR commentators read in Newsweek or the New Yorker or the Atlantic Monthly. Commentators saying that the free market system no longer works for the little guy, for the average guy. They demonize wealth, they demonize, and in the process they demonize initiative, entrepreneurship, hopes, dreams. I am not a rich man standing up here tonight, but I haven't given up the dream of being rich. And I don't resent others who have obtained their wealth through hard work, through intelligence, through just plain luck. I don't believe I have less because someone else has more. To me, that is an entirely un-American attitude. And yet, you still have in Washington this attack on wealth, this attack on success, which is going to ultimately result in less innovation in this country, less job creation, less investment, less initiative. I want to read something I got an email today, just to give you a couple of examples of, tangible examples of this war on wealth that has happened under this administration. In 2011, marginal tax rates, income tax rates, are set to rise to 39.6% from 35% today, meaning when you combine local taxes and the payroll tax, you will have people in this country paying a 60% to 65% tax rate. Who thinks that's a fair amount? I mean, I don't expect to ever have any chance of getting into that tax bracket, but I recognize that's not fair. Capital gains, dividends currently taxed at 15%. These are taxes on investments, set to rise to 20%, and there's a move in Congress to take them to 35%. You don't have to be an economist to know what that's going to do as a discouragement to people investing their money in businesses that create jobs. High earners in 2011 will lose their ability to deduct their personal exemptions, their mortgage, their child credit, etc. The estate tax, the death tax, set to disappear in January. Congress next week will likely attach to the defense appropriations bill a measure to extend it another year, and then in 2011 raise it to a 45% rate, so that when you die, the government gets 45% of what you've worked your life for, as if it's more entitled to your hard work, the results of your labor, than your children are, than your families are. Again, there's other things, Medicare payroll tax going up, Michigan pushing for a graduated income tax, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of wealth that was in the hands of private individuals, used to invest in businesses, in communities, in job creation, used to give to charity, civic organizations. That wealth is going to be moved from those private pocketbooks into the federal treasury and used to expand the size, scope, and influence of the federal government. This administration has as its end goal creating a dependent population, a population that is wholly dependent for their well-being on the federal government and the Democrats who control it. I mentioned the defense bill, and they were going to attach the estate tax. I didn't mention that they're also going to attach to the defense bill a measure that will raise the federal debt ceiling, the amount they can owe, to $14 trillion from $12 trillion today. I can't even begin to fathom $14 trillion. But I've got to believe that that's about $1,000 for every Chinese person in China, because that's who we'll owe the money to. That's who we do owe the money to. That ceiling is being raised to support a nearly $500 million spending bill. The fourth major spending bill Congress has passed this year will raise federal spending by 10% in a year when there's no inflation. It's as if they don't recognize that we're in a recession, that we're in an economic crisis, that we don't have the money. They will spend nearly as much, they will spend this year nearly twice as much as they take in. And they will spend it in all manner of pork barrel projects. At the end of the day, you and I will be no better off than we are right now. They're laying the groundwork with their gigantic social programs for a further extension of federal influence and government control over our lives. Look at the Copenhagen conference this week. Look at the things that are being discussed. I don't know if you've been following that with email, but Barack Obama is going to go down there next week with other world leaders, despite mounting evidence that this whole global warming business is based on fraudulent data, without pausing to question the legitimacy of the research, without asking a single question about whether the science is valid. He will go down there, or go out there next week to Copenhagen, and commit the United States to reducing its emissions by 17% below 2005 levels by 2020 in 10 years, and in 20 years by 85%. How do you do that? You do that by shutting down your factories, by shutting down your power plants, by closing off your growth. We have managed over the last decade or so to decrease emissions by 3% in this country. And boy, we'd think that's something to celebrate, something to applaud, except that we did it by shipping our jobs to China and India, by moving our factories to Mexico. And that's how we will reach these new goals. Because China and India aren't going to sign on to this nonsense. What they're going to do, oh, and by the way, he's also going to commit to sending $3 billion more a year of our money to developing nations, to some of the most corrupt regimes in the world, on the pretext that they'll use it to reduce their carbon emissions. You know where that money will go. That money will go the same place the tens of billions of dollars we send now is going, into the pockets of dictators, tyrants, squandered, wasted, pocketed by UN officials, anything but what it was intended to do. Once Congress moves on climate change, once it passes its cap and tax bill next year, if it has the guts to do it, the government will be deeply into our homes and into our lives. It'll tell us what cars we can buy, what kind of light bulbs we can buy. I tell you what, I went out to Walmart and bought every incandescent light they had on the shelf. I've got a lifetime of incandescent lights. I will not burn one of those twisty light bulbs. I mean, it's a small protest, but I am not having those things in my house. So someday I expect to get very wealthy off my stash of incandescent bulbs. This whole global warming business has become a new religion. These people are fanatics. They will not listen to reason. They are willing to sacrifice your lifestyle, your jobs, your prosperity to accomplish what they see as this greater good. It's very dangerous when that level of fanaticism starts influencing policy. Obama will come back from Copenhagen not with a treaty that will require the Senate approval. And remember, when they came back from Kyoto and asked the Senate to approve a climate change treaty, the Senate voted 96-0 against it. Republicans, Democrats, liberal, conservative, moderate, 96-0 because they recognized its impact on the American economy. The Senate will not have an opportunity to vote on what he does in Copenhagen because he has conveniently set up the EPA to do the dirty work for Congress. Last week's announcement that they were going to regulate carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas sets the EPA up to impose all sorts of restrictions on cars, on power plants, on appliances, on what we do in our homes without the approval of a single elected representative. Healthcare, don't be fooled that Joe Lieberman is going to hold up healthcare.